Spoilers for my game Voyager 19, go play it first if you want the full experience. It's only $4 and takes under an hour to beat, so if you don't like it, you can just return it. I needed to design some horror elements for my space exploration game. My first idea was to have some kind of typical Lovecraftian eldritch horror. You encounter it in deep space, it breaks your mind and makes you go mad. But there were two problems with this approach. One, how do I make the graphics for an incomprehensible entity? And two, it's kind of obvious. I feel like this style of horror has been done in games and wouldn't really be a unique selling point for my game. My second idea was paranormal horror. You encounter a wrecked spacecraft with a dead pilot, and the pilot's ghost basically hitches a ride on your ship without you knowing to try to get home to Earth so it can rest peacefully. However, during the long interstellar trips, it gradually loses its mind and becomes malevolent, attempting to attack you and take over your ship. This idea was a lot more interesting with more opportunities for creepy moments, and I actually might make this into a game at some point. But I ended up not going with it for a couple reasons. One, I feel like Ghosts in Space has been done before, so it's still not unique enough for me. And two, this is a space exploration game where you photograph planets. I wanted the horror element to be something interesting to photograph, and while a ghost could mess with your camera to make creepy things appear, it still wouldn't feel like you're actually exploring or discovering something creepy. My final idea happened iteratively. I was thinking of having some kind of UFO that captures sentient creatures for whatever reason. And then I had the idea that it creates a hologram of a habitable planet around it as a way to lure prey in. But then I thought it would be even cooler if it was just some animal with no technology involved. It had just evolved to use aggressive mimicry, which is basically camouflage for predators, at a cosmic scale. I thought of doing some kind of giant crustacean that has a shell that looks like a planet, but that just didn't make sense as it would have too much mass to reasonably move around, and there's no way it would ever get enough to eat. So I then came up with this much more alien design. It has massive paper-thin wings that curl into a sphere, and a long tentacle it uses to grab prey. And this was finally the horror design that I was happy with. With the design done, I had to do some build up to it. Early in the game, you find a wrecked spacecraft with some encrypted files. As you travel from system to system, you gradually decrypt the files, which gives clues as to what the monster is. You also encounter a dead one and a few of what I intended to be eggs, but lots of people thought they were just adults disguised as habitable planets for some other kind of species, which is honestly a way cooler idea, so I'm leaving it up to interpretation. Graphically, these are just spheres with a noise texture with triplanar coordinates and a repeated gradient texture to give it the wing lines. For the final level, I felt like the obvious thing would have been to have a sudden jump scare where you encounter the monster and then die. But I really wanted to show off the creature design. I felt like with the build-up hinting at what it is and how unique its design is, it's way creepier to have it slowly pull you in, and all you can do is photograph it over and over, learning more about it until it crushes you. And that's how I designed the horror for Voyager 19. Thank you to everyone who played it. The game has been out for almost 2 weeks now, and I'm pretty happy with how it's turned out. My goal was to make a small game in a couple weeks and get out of my comfort zone of only making very mechanics-focused games and do something more atmospheric and story-focused. However, I think I should have had more mechanics, like more interesting spacecraft controls, and maybe some procedurally generated content, as a lot of players suggested. That would have made the moment-to-moment gameplay a lot more interesting and allowed for more replayability. Also, I realized the main downside of a story-focused game is that streamers and YouTubers don't really help the game sell. With a game like Endoparasitic, it looks very fun and unique, and when people see a YouTuber or streamer play it, they also want to play it and experience the mechanics themselves. But with a story-focused game, seeing someone else play through it gives you the whole experience, and then there's no point in playing it yourself. So my main lesson learned is to always have engaging moment-to-moment gameplay in my games if I want them to sell.